Hello, friends, and welcome to Service of Change's Changecast, your podcast for change. I'm your host, Dennis Nappy II, with Service of Change, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. We have a really exciting show tonight. Enoch confronts the Nephilim with our guest, CJ Recchia. My apologies if I'm saying that incorrectly. I'm sure he'll correct me once he comes on the air with us. He is putting out a short film about it. I'm really interested to get into this subject. He's also an artist, a clothing designer, just graduated from college. He has a bright future ahead of him. Really excited to get into this discussion tonight and talk to CJ about all the great stuff he's got going on. But before I do that, I must bring in my partner in crime, Joel the Provocateur Schaefer. Joel, what's going on tonight, dude?
I'm only your partner in thought crime. No real crimes are ever committed.
Thought crime is a dangerous crime, my friend. 1984.
It is, but I'm guilty of thought crime.
As am I.
But no real crime. No animals or humans are harmed in the making of our podcasts.
We may hurt some people's minds sometimes, I would say.
That's true. I
that's
hurt my own mind.
As do I. As do I. And that's the goal of the Changecast. You know, we're trying to inspire that change, and sometimes change is a painful process. Once again, I am stuttering like crazy tonight, man. What is going on with me? I'm more professional than that. But yeah, man, change can be that painful process. So if you have that little bit of brain hurt after the show, that's what we hope for. We want to challenge some of your. Tonight, we're going to challenge some of your beliefs, and we ask that you have an open mind to some of the things that we talk about, because again, that's where change comes from. Take a look at the world around us. The world is a scary place right now. There's too much suffering, too much pain, too much corruption. You know, as has been said in one of my favorite movies, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. You got to try some wrong, dog, because what's doing what has been right for you in the past has not worked. So let's try something different. That was an awkward quote, I understand, but a great movie. Steve Carell's one of my idols. So, you know, what's going on in your world, Joel, before we jump into this show? Anything exciting?
I'm doing well. I was talking to you before the show about some of, my recent explorations have been about, about the ideas about aggression and like when aggression is appropriate. But, last week at work, one of my coworkers really challenged me, and all the work I do on my own, but also in partnership with you and in the podcast, I was able to like handle it, I think, better than usual. And I had watched this video by the Gracies. They're the mixed martial artists, and they have these videos. And the one guy was saying it's so true, and I know it, but I thought it was worth repeating for our show real quick before we get into it. He said that if other people's opinion of you affect your sense of self, then they've already won. I'm paraphrasing, or this is actually what I got from it. But they've already kind of won, like the tactical or the strategic battle that often precedes like a physical battle. They're in your head. Yes. That's it. Absolutely. So I took that to heart, and one of my coworkers, like, he was trying to control me. Maybe, I don't know if bullying's the right word, but he was trying to control me, and he was being very hypocritical about something. And I didn't let him change my behavior, but I remember being very angry. And what I realized was I was angry because I didn't want him to be upset with me, which is very strange, because I'm angry at him for not, I wanted him to like me. And I had to just realize, well, maybe if something's going on with him that makes him want to try to control me, I just need to leave him to his own devices and not let him try to control me, and not get angry that he tries. And
sounds like he's the thought police.
Say that again?
I said, sounds like he's the thought police.
To an extent, but we were talking about this. We all do this to a certain extent. Like, we all often try to control each other, and to have freedom with each other and to really try to communicate. It's a challenge, especially in a high-paced, fast-paced world. So that's just some food for thought. Maybe we can get into it in another show. Okay, yeah, definitely. It's definitely worth exploring. I'm going to shift gears for a minute. I caught something across the social media feeds today. I shared it and retweeted it, but apparently kids in Kensington walked out of their Keystone State tests today. I saw that. In protest, and I am ecstatic over it. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of, standardized testing is what has ruined education, starting with No Child Left Behind. I mean, it goes back prior to that,
But you know, and I've said it in my books. I've said it, you know, on the air. I've said it in articles. We need to stop the testing, and if the students would unionize, if the parents would organize, or the teachers would organize and say we're refusing to give the test, refusing to take the test, you know, and they did that across the board on a large scale, that would end it right there, because these tests are horrible. They're absolutely a horrible thing for education. So shout out to all the students that took, you know, took a stand today. That's the type of protest we need to see. You know, that's the way to do it. That's the way to bring about change. So I hope we see more of that in the future. You know, in regards to these tests. And I'm excited that we're having a guest on the 28th. Mark your calendars. Alex Newman. He's an author of Crimes of the Educator. It's a really interesting book that talks about how deep this really runs with what's happening with education in America and around the world.
And in other areas like policing, the use of statistics to try to drive crime down, and then manipulating your policies. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll take up too much time, but that has a lot to do with a lot of the inner city problems with policing. Is that they've employed certain tactics that show real nice on statistics. But they cause problems with real good police work.
It does. Those stats, you know, like I said, I don't buy into stats because I've seen them manipulated in those exact situations. I've seen them manipulated in the school system. You know, as far as crimes in the schools, either they go unreported because they don't want their numbers to look bad, or they're misrepresented, or you know, people just don't address them because they don't want those numbers to start looking worse than they are. So, but again, that's a whole other show. May 28th. Mark your calendars. That's going to be a really exciting interview. You know, Alex is a writer who's in so many different publications, different magazines. He was just on Red Ice Radio, which is you know, a really big program.
I was just listening to that last night.
Yeah, it's a great program. So I'm looking forward to connecting with him in a couple weeks. So let's jump into our guest, Joel, because the clock is ticking, and I'm excited to talk with CJ about you know, Enoch and his encounters with the Nephilim, the short film that he has coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and read his bio real quick. So bear with me as I shuffle through my different screens. Here we go. All right. So CJ Recchia graduated from Haverford High School in Havertown, PA, and graduated from Hussein College of Art's 4-year program for illustration in Philadelphia. CJ is a visual artist traditionally trained in illustration and well-rounded in graphic design. His body of work evokes a dark spiritual presence inspired by the occult and the subconscious mind. Inspired by his brother Stephen, who went to film school at Temple College, CJ fell in love with the art of cinematography. He's primarily worked shooting and editing music videos in the past, but dreams of creating his own film always stayed relevant. With help from his brother, friends, and teachers at Hussein College of Art, CJ was able to make his dreams a reality. Enoch is the name of his short film coming this summer. The story follows a man who takes on the task of rebuilding the Garden of Eden for a mysterious spiritual being. CJ has also self-published his first book named Chakras, a 50-page book consisting of photography and illustrations. The book is a dark adaptation of the 8 points of spiritual connection. Inspired by global crisis, dark spirituality, and heavy metal culture, he has currently established an independent clothing line named Beware the Water. Beware the Water is an urban social awareness brand created here in Philadelphia, designed and owned by CJ and his brother Stephen Recchia, or Recchia. I'll have to ask him how to pronounce his name. They have Instagram feeds and some other social media feeds that we're going to share throughout the show. So let me go ahead and bring CJ on. CJ, are you with us?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, dude? What an impressive background you have, man. That's some awesome stuff you've got going on. Now, you just graduated from college. Is that what you were saying during the pre-show?
Yeah, just graduated yesterday, man.
Wow, congratulations. How's it feel?
Feels awesome.
That's great, man.
Been at school my whole life, man.
Yeah.
No more.
Well, no more official school, but you never stop learning. You know?
Nah, never.
A guy like you, the quest for that knowledge that's out there, and there's so much of it. And I'm thankful for people like you who are putting this type of stuff out there. I'm glad to see that the next generation is passing it on and hopefully expanding upon it to draw attention to it.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. So before we jump into the bulk of this, you actually know Joel personally, correct?
Yes, I do.
How do you guys know each other?
Well, actually, he's great friends with my cousin Mario. I guess a lot of years ago, many years ago now. I don't know, man. I used to do some hip hop stuff, and so did Joel. So my cousin kind of, you know, introduced us to each other, and then
the rest is history.
Man, the rest is history. Here we are.
Who'd have thought that years later you guys would be doing a podcast, you know, talking about Enoch and Nephilim and all that interesting stuff out there.
I'm sure we probably talked about way weirder things than that.
Yeah. Well, it evolves. I mean, I think I'm not going to speak for CJ, but I was attracted to hip hop because it was different than the culture that it was being presented to me. My culture consisted of American mainstream culture. I had a little bit of culture from my parents that was like more intellectual culture, but I didn't have any other like Irish or German or Dutch culture really. So I had a mainstream culture, and it always left me feeling empty because it was commercialized.
Right.
So hip hop was more organic and raw. So
exactly.
You know, I was attracted to that, and I was attracted to lots of other types of inquiry. So I think like it's a pretty easy segue from hip hop into, not everybody takes it, but I think it's into these other things like the subconscious. That's what in his bio, the subconscious. I was like, what? That's what I'm into too.
Yeah, that definitely caught my attention. You know, the dark spiritual presence. Can you speak a little bit more about that? How you're inspired by the occult and the subconscious mind? How'd you get into that stuff, CJ?
Yeah, well, I actually went to Catholic school up until high school. I actually went to Monsignor Bonner freshman year of high school, which is a Catholic high school.
Right.
My mom's, you know, old school Italian lady. She loves Jesus, you know. Stuff like that. But I don't know, man, like just been always interested in, you know, religious scripture from all different faiths, like, you know, and I look at the good and bad parts. And I just always been interested in dark things, you know, like when I was a kid, like I always liked the bad guys in TV shows or whatever, you know what I mean? Used to draw like villains instead of superheroes. I was just always into, like, you know, the other side.
Why do you think that is, CJ? But, what draws you to it?
I think it's more interesting. Like, you know, I don't know. Everybody wants to be good and dandy. But, you know, in reality, that's not how the world works at all.
That's true.
I agree with you on that.
By no means am I an evil guy or whatever, but you know, it's just I think
Tell
it's
the truth.
a little more.
Tell the truth, CJ. I'm just playing.
Yeah, it's, you know.
But you bring up a good point, CJ. That's
a goat right now while I'm, you know, talking.
Yeah, you kid, but you know, you bring up a good point, CJ. Is that, you know, the world's not the way that we see it on TV. The good guy doesn't always win. You know, that's kind of what I got into with my book, I Am Human, is trying to change that belief system. You know, like I've spoken to people that say, well, no matter what, good always wins, or God won't give me anything that I can't handle. And you know, and my thoughts are, well, people die horrible deaths every day. People suffer every single day. That's not the world. That's a lie that we've been sold. You know, there is some darkness that thrives in this world around us, and I think that we need to acknowledge it and we need to understand it, so then we can better address it and deal with it, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to put my head in the sand because everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
You can find that balance between, you know, good and bad. Everyone's got good and bad inside them.
You're absolutely right. You know, I was listening to some, you know, David Icke references this. I don't know who the original source is, but it's a Native American saying that every person has two wolves inside of them. One wolf is evil, one wolf is benevolent. You know, and the wolf that manifests within you depends on which one you feed the most. You know, and that holds a lot of truth. And I know I butchered that saying, which I do for all the sayings I try to repeat. But
no,
you get the idea.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
That was accurate.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, if Joel's saying it's accurate,
I'm your fact checker.
He really is, man. He's a walking encyclopedia.
He is.
So let's look at this, man. So you've where do we want to start? You know what? Let's start with your movie. You know,
okay.
Let's talk a minute. It's what's the name of your movie?
All right, this short film. It's called Enoch.
And who is Enoch for those, you know, out there that aren't familiar with the Book of Enoch and who he is?
The Book of Enoch itself it's basically a shunned text. It is not in the Bible. You know, people kind of frown upon the Book of Enoch because it's a little wild.
It's considered part of the word is apocrypha.
Apocrypha text, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he shunned out of the Bible, and that was actually taken out. And fact checker Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was taken out under Constantine, correct? When he rewrote the Bible, basically took out a bunch of books.
I believe. Wicked Joel is not sure.
Okay, I think that's around the time that book was taken out.
It's at least somewhere around there, but you might be right, but I don't want to miss.
Right, no, that's fine.
I know Enoch is he's the descendant of Adam and Eve. I think they call him the seventh of Adam. I believe they call him. Yeah, so like.
See, I'm holding the book in my hands right now. You know what? I'm not going to find that right here, but go on.
So basically, for the film, I took a lot of inspiration from the Book of Enoch. It's a long thing. It's broken up into sections. The Book of Enoch. I honestly haven't read the whole thing, but I've been inspired by it. It's a crazy story. It's demons, angels, giants. Like Enoch is, besides Jesus, like he's the only one that is taken directly up into heaven with God. Like that's always what's interested me. And there's a quote in the Book of Enoch that is in the beginning of the film that says Enoch walked with God until God took him, which is like eerie to me. Like it's like what happened, like what's going on. Like he directly ascended to God. And so I took the character Enoch and the Nephilim, which I will explain what that is later. I took those two characters and I basically reinterpreted the story into my own film. The film itself is about Enoch. He confronts the Nephilim, which is the other character in the film, which is played by Jessica McGilvery, my friend, and Enoch is played by my friend Israel Barrios. The Nephilim, just a little more background, is, according to the Book of Enoch, angels were tempted to have sexual intercourse with female human beings. So he talks about a lot of there's a lot of rape stories between angels and humans,
right. The angels of God came down into the women, and were the daughters of men. Right.
God was not happy with that, and the offspring of angels and humans were called Nephilim, and like Goliath and other people, other not historical, but biblical stories, there's mention of giant human beings, and they're actually the offspring of angels and human, which are called the Nephilim. So in my film, the Nephilim, played by Jessica, she's a very scary, abnormally tall figure, opposed to Enoch in the film. Like we had her standing on a structure to make her taller and everything. It's really weird. It's cool.
It sounds interesting. I saw the trailer that you sent us, and we'll have that up. If it's available for public release, we'll have it up on the show notes affiliated with this show in the next day or so everybody else can check out that trailer. It definitely catches the viewer's attention. A lot of neat transitions and camera angles and visual cues, I think, that are going to be appealing to people.
I'm excited.
It out.
After the release of the film, we're going to try and shoot for June.
Okay.
Maybe early July.
We'll definitely keep us posted, and we'll share that through our feeds and stuff, and we'll link it to to these show notes as well, so people can find your film. But it's a fascinating subject. I've looked into this quite a bit. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm reminded of a couple things that like our guest a few weeks ago, Ray Davis, just put out a book. It's called Anunnaki Awakening, and it's a book about. It's a fictional work based on a lot of that type of research. And he talks about the Sitchin's research out of Sumeria and the Anunnaki. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that
yeah,
work.
really familiar with that, actually, yeah.
And it mirrors a little bit of what they're talking about here, slightly differently how they talk, and Enoch talks about the angels came down and mated with the women, where in Sitchin's work, it's more that they genetically engineered men and talking about Genesis and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But definitely a lot of correlations, and I just listened to an author, Michael Cremo. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he wrote just a groundbreaking book called Forbidden Archaeology, and it's 1,000. His initial book is 1,000 pages. I mean, he's been doing this for 30, 40 years now, and he's traced back evidence of an ancient civilization of humanity. I mean, they have carbon dated evidence that goes back tens of thousands of years and beyond that science can't explain. It's a fascinating line of research that he's done. There's giants and skeletons of giants that have been discovered and everything.
There are it's factual that they've actually found abnormally large skeletal structures like Middle East, where all this Nephilim, Enoch stuff is taking place. Like it's weird.
I think there's more to.
It's not even like just a story anymore.
Like,
What are these giant bones of?
So my hope is that with films like yours, with people motivated to really understand this, it'll bring that knowledge to the next generation so we can understand. Hey, I mean, because it's let me ask you, why is this important? Why do you think this is important?
Well, the film itself, like. I would like to say, like, well, first off, I apologize. I'm not a good speaker at all about my work. I wish I could describe things better, but it's not a direct take of the Book of Enoch. Like I just took basically the two characters from the book and made my own story. I think it's important to take inspiration from other works, like. And recreate them, repurpose them. Like, everybody does that. Every artist does that. Now, don't let anyone tell you that, I'm the first one to do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's, I think it's more respectable to come out and say it. Like, like everyone has their own ideas, of course. Like, this whole thing is my own idea. I wrote the whole story.
Right.
I just happened to take two characters that I'm inspired by to things that already exist, and repurpose them. I think it's important to repurpose things, like, generation after generation.
We see that in Hollywood all the time, and there's a lot of times it's neat now going back, understanding some of this type of stuff we're talking about, and you see a lot of times the things behind the scenes, you're like, wow, they put that symbol there, or they put that, they use those words, or they're wearing that, particular uniform. There's a history behind that, so there's kind of like a hidden story in a lot of just commonplace movies that you see, and you think it's a movie about, Mickey Mouse or whatever, but it ends up being tied into some whole different, sometimes a biblical story that comes out, and that's a neat history that's, I think that's in there, and that's how I think artists with this interest keep that story alive and are able to get it into a mainstream context, because they can easily say, well, that's just a movie, which I think we understand that there's more to it than it just being a film. So this is.
I remember.
Go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say, just to CJ's point about the borrowing that goes on, there's also like repetition through history, because human beings, some of the same themes and some of the same ways of expressing themselves repeat, and we all like pretty much have the same subconsciouses, regardless of or similar subconscious structures. We're human beings regardless of our culture. But I remember I looked up my rap alias was Loki, and I looked up Loki and I was rapping using that alias, and it turns out Loki in the story was insulting the other gods of Asgard, because he was a Norse god. He was insulting them in rhyming form in one of the stories. So he was battle rapping the other gods, attacking them. And then I looked and saw that King James, the one who wrote the King James Bible, or he authorized it, he used to have court poets who would engage in the same thing that was a long tradition going back, to the Germanic tribes, because the Norwegians or the Vikings were related to the Germans, who were related to the Anglo-Saxons, who later settled, England. It was called flyting, Flyting, and it was insulting somebody, like playing the dozens, like yo mama jokes, like
poetry battles, yeah.
Poetry battles, and they used to have what were called scatological references, so poop references and sexual references. So he would pay these court poets to battle each other, in our terminology, to call each other names and rhymes for his pleasure. So hip hop is unique to African American and Puerto Rican culture, but some of its elements are not unique at all. So I just thought that was interesting.
Wow. Yeah. That's definitely a fitting title for you with Loki.
And there's a little backstory on my old rap name too, man. Me and Joel are such nerds. my rap name was. It's funny that you said that about the Anunnaki, the guy that wrote that book, in the Sumerian culture. My friggin' rap name was Ishtar Terror. Wow. Ishtar was a goddess the ancient Sumerians worshipped. She was the goddess of basically love and war. And the Ishtar Terror, Terra, is a mountain range on Venus. So I took a pun, terror versus Terra. Ishtar Terror. I don't know. I thought I was so cool back then.
I saw a play on that exact word in a conspiracy theory video where they were talking about, they were playing what Bush was saying. He was saying there's a war on Terra, and Terra also means the Earth. And they were saying there's a war on Earth, and they played into that play on words too. So man, I think that's creative and that's deep. And you see a lot of people they pull out these names or even just these symbols of these old gods, the Egyptian gods and stuff, which has been, I think, made too popular now with all the the Illuminati lore and stuff in the mainstream. But a lot of educated people are using these old names, for that meaning behind that, which is a pretty interesting.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I just, not that I, believe or worship that kind of stuff. Like, I don't really dive into like worshiping things like that. But like, it's interesting to learn from different cultures, ancient cultures or current faith. Like I like to take a little bit of everything, and learn. Just keep learning, like you said, yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that I did not know that about Loki until after I'd chosen Loki as a name back in like '96. I used to try to do graffiti with the name Loki. So I didn't know.
Never did though, right?
No, I did it. I just sucked.
Try to keep you out of jail,
I can't call it graffiti because it was horrible, because my penmanship is terrible. But I would spray paint it on things, yes. But I didn't know that, and I think this speaks to like there was something about Enoch and the Nephilim, CJ, that like spoke to something in your subconscious, just like the name Loki spoke to me in my subconscious. So, like, what do you think it was about these figures that you wanted to explore?
I think it's just like it's I don't know. I mean, it's a deep question. I gotta take 1 second here.
Sure, it's all right.
I mean, it's the film, and the actual Book of Enoch. Like when I was reading through the Book of Enoch, and it's awesome to see like wow, like I guess now I know why they shun this from the Bible, man. There's like you know how people are, like there's really strict people that read the Bible and this is fact, blah 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 kind of stuff.
Right.
Like the Book of Enoch, there's angels mating with humans, and Enoch. It's similar. It's very similar to Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
Where Dante goes on like this tour of hell. Enoch goes on a tour of heaven.
Heaven, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the dark side of spirituality.
It interests me to make like a newer story, a darker version of the Book of Enoch in my own way, in a short film. I always wanted to make a film. I've always been interested in ancient culture, ancient scripture. And it was a fun idea, so that's what I wanted to do, and I did it, and it should be out this summer.
Nice.
CJ, why do you think that book is shunned and that whole subject is shunned by religion today?
Well, I like I said earlier, like about how Enoch ascended to heaven, and as did Jesus in the New Testament of the Bible. The Old Testament is very, very different than the New Testament. God is wrathful.
Yep.
Is that a word, Joel? Wrathful? Okay. He's very different. Like, there's a lot of,
there's dark stuff.
Magic. It's like almost magic that's like happening in the Old Testament. There's like Moses splits the Red Sea, blah blah blah.
Right.
Like you don't Jesus turned water into wine, like in the New Testament. Like it's not it's not even extraordinary. The New
It's not on the same scale.
The Book of Enoch is just so extraordinary, so out there that it's its own thing. Like I don't think it even has a place in the Bible. I agree. Like it's its own thing.
It doesn't have a place in the Bible as it's written today. You mean?
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say
it's almost like reading like a fairy tale book, like giants and these Nephilim giants.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Kind of.
It doesn't even sound. Yeah.
I was going to say that the fairy tales are really dark things, and they speak to an older culture, what we would consider a less civilized culture, a culture that was more comfortable with interacting with the darker parts of our nature. And one of the valid criticisms of modern Christianity is that it's tried to suppress the parts of us that seem like we can't control.
Yeah.
So Christianity evolved with our attempt to just tame the wilderness, tame our sexual impulses, tame our violence. But none of those, we haven't successfully tamed it. And there was just this poll out that says that fewer people are identifying as Christians, and I think that's because the type of Christianity that's branded like McDonald's and put out there, like there's a church and a McDonald's on every street. The type of Christianity that's put out there doesn't speak to our condition. It doesn't, like you were saying, Dennis, it doesn't speak to the suffering that people have to endure. Whereas the pagan tradition that me and Dennis are attracted to, and I don't want to speak for you, CJ, but I think that's what attracted you to Enoch.
You're right. Yeah.
That the pagan in you that is you really want to wrap your hands around some of the things.
There's more of an exploration of spirituality in the Book of Enoch and in the Old Testament. It's more of a journey, and then the New Testament's more adapted to fit today's world. It's
it is, and I think
if I want to read something, I want it to be extraordinary. I want it to be out there, I'm not gonna, I don't really take the Bible. I take input from every faith. I'm not, I'm not really a religious guy. I like to read stories. They're just stories to, live by.
Do you think there's any? Do you think some of the stories that are out there are based on live events, or do you think they're all more just metaphors for people, out there in life? Because you hear both sides.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, there is no remnants of Jesus left. I mean, the cloth with his face with the blood on it. I think that they have that or something, but there's no
Shroud and Torah. Yeah.
There's no Ten Commandments laying around anywhere. No one's ever found Moses' body. Yes and no. There are stories. Stories I could get in a fight with a kid, and I beat him, but his friends are going to go run and tell his friends that, he beat me.
Well, history is written by the winner or the person with the biggest bank account.
Exactly. It's ever so changing. It's just you got to take it for what it is. It's a story for first and foremost. And what do you do with a story? You learn, you get inspired, and I make art from it, That's what it is to me. It's not a factual thing. It's just to open up your mind. You know?
To help you grow on your spiritual path of understanding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that what the truth movement's all about then, you think? Is ultimately just trying to find our own way, regardless of what that truth is?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even necessarily like with or without God. It's yourself. You have to know and love yourself before you know and love anything else. Like, once you find who you are, then you're at peace. You know what I mean?
Then you're better able to listen to other people. I
Yeah.
think I said that in my new book that you have to be able to take that look at yourself and keep that open mind. And if what somebody else is telling you, if the challenge to your own faith, if your faith stands up, then great. And if not, great. Excuse me. Either way, you're walking away with knowledge or reassurance that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
What struck me, go ahead, Joel. What struck me in you describing, and I knew this, but what struck me in you describing it again is how these angels, who are normally considered, they come from God, so they're probably good. They're doing possibly things that aren't good. Like they're at least, at the very least, being tempted by the flesh of other humans. And I had an idea for a book, and I started it, and I might put it into the project I'm doing now. But it was this idea that God isn't all powerful. Well, he might be all powerful, but he's not necessarily all good, because he's confined by the same circumstances to a certain extent that we are, that he has to be here. And this is what you were just saying, that God has a self too. So God is lonely, and that's why he created us. But then he sees that his creation possibly are mistakes. Or his angels, he sends them down to earth, and they make mistakes. And then he has to fix it.
Enoch, there's actually a line that says God is upset for what, he's mad at himself for what he created.
Oh, boom. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And that's why, supposedly, according to the book of Enoch, there was another flood, unlike the one we know with Noah's Ark. There was another one that wiped out the Nephilim, which the offspring of the angels and human. That's why God supposedly casted another flood to wipe out them, because he was upset, because he didn't know that, he didn't think the angels would do that. He didn't think the humans would do that.
He was fallible, just like we are to a certain extent.
And in talking about the creation,
wrathful God, that's it's a very different God than in the New Testament.
It's interesting too, in talking about the creation. One of the books that really got me started on this journey back when I was in high school was a book called Cosmic Journey by Dr. Courtney Brown, who's a former military intelligence officer, and a remote viewer. He's trained in remote viewing. And he did a session trying to understand the concept of God. And what he came up with was that God created everything out of sheer loneliness, and he wanted to understand himself. And when you when I think about the world, and I think about the fact that evil exists, and I don't even know that evil is the right word for it. Just the positive and negative aspect of life. If you have something that's just trying to learn and to understand, then it has to explore the good and the bad, and not necessarily with negative intent to hurt people, but, well, I want to know what happens. I want to know what this feels like. I want to know what this is. And I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse about things, but it definitely gives me something to think about.
Well, if God is totally perfect, then he's more like a robot than an actual person who's capable of having empathy. So if God can forgive us, it's not really forgiveness if he doesn't understand it, if he doesn't feel it, if he can't have some point of reference in his own experience where he goes, oh, I know what it's like to screw up. If he's never screwed up, that's not really forgiveness. That's like us pitying an ant. You know what I mean? Like, we pity the ant before we step on it.
Like Dennis, you said, the positive and negative of everything. Like, that's, primarily I work a lot in black and white. That's why the film is black and white. Enoch is the, white is symbolism, symbolized as good, and black is bad. Like the film is in black and white. A lot of my drawings are in black and white. The photography is in black and white. Like there is a positive and negative to everything.
There's a dualistic flow, to the universe, to at least to our current understanding of the universe and our current, perception of it. There's a lot of power behind that and behind that understanding, and I've said it several times that a lot of times things that I view as evil, from my perspective, they may be evil, but to the dog, humans are these great, caring, wonderful beings, but to the chicken, we're these horrible savages that rip their heads off and eat their family members. It's all a matter of perspective and where you stand, in the greater scheme of things, and your awareness of it.
Yeah, it's all about a balance. If you find that balance between positive and negative, happiness will come. That's what I think.
That's the goal.
As far back to more of the Enoch story, the film. I thought it was cool, because Goliath is probably the most known Nephilim,
right?
Giant warrior that David, cast down with the slingshot. There were female Nephilim, which I found out by reading more about the book of Enoch, and in my film, the Nephilim character is a girl, and there weren't many, but the girls that were Nephilim were almost like Sphinx type things. Like they would tell people riddles. People would go to them like they were kind of like genies. If you did a favor for them, they would do a favor for you type thing.
Right.
So I took that and kind of created my own story. Enoch summons a Nephilim. She appears. She tells him that she wants him to rebuild the Garden of Eden. And if he does that for her, that all the answers of the universe will come to him. So that's what my short film is about.
Almost sounds like she's the the serpent itself.
Yeah.
I'll give you knowledge so you can be just like God, within the garden. So that's neat. That's a neat.
I wanted it to be, because like I said, I am not a religious guy, but I enjoy reading religious scripture.
Right.
I wanted it to be open to both sides. Like if people are religious, they could watch this.
Right.
And if you're not, you could just take it as a cool short film,
Right. And I think that's the best approach, as opposed to, you see a lot of stuff out there today that's controversial, even in this realm, and I think part of it is because as people go through this journey of understanding, like me being raised, Christian, once I started to understand some of this stuff, I was very angry. I felt misled. So I can see the temptation to put out stuff that's controversial, that's going to anger people. But at the end of the day, you're just driving people away. If you want people to be able to have a discussion to, encourage learning, and community, that approach, I respect that approach a lot more. I think it's great to offer that platform where anybody can watch it and take something away from it. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a story, and we tell stories every day. I'm excited. I'm excited for it to be finished up and released. Like I said, the Nephilim character is played by my friend Jessica McGilvery. Enoch is played by my friend Israel Barrios. My brother Stephen Recchia helped me film and direct it and write some of the story. Tons of other people that are involved that I'm thankful for. Like it's a big step in my life, man. It took a long time to build the set. Like we were going crazy, man. I wish you guys could have saw. We built like a huge black box basically that we filmed this in. If you watch the trailer, the atmosphere that they're in, like the environment that the characters are around, it's just they're in it's just a black environment, like a vast black emptiness.
Wow.
And to get that look, we literally had to construct it. It was cool filming. Because it was interactive. It was like we were almost there in that universe we created.
Wow, and hopefully that's the start of great things for you. Do you have any other future projects on the horizon?
As far as film goes,
Mhm.
I got plenty of stories locked in the chamber of my mind that I would
Right.
like to do, man. But I was talking to Joel about, because I know he's a great storyteller. Maybe doing something with him. You know, he has a lot of stuff
Yeah.
written down that maybe we can put into a visual perspective. Uh,
Yeah.
as far as that, I'm still doing my art. Photography, like paintings, graphite drawings, stuff like that. The clothing line,
Yeah.
Beware the Water.
Tell us a little bit about your art and your clothing line, because we're running up. We got about 10 minutes left on the show.
Okay, yeah.
Talk about that.
Uh, I, as of now, since I graduated, me and my brother established like this indie clothing line, and we called it Beware the Water. I'd like to say that it's called we call it an urban social awareness brand. So
Hmm.
it's very inspired by like global warming and a lot of like global crises that are going on. Kind
Hmm.
of like if you guys are familiar with like Vice on HBO,
Yep.
or uh, it's not necessarily we're putting like straightforward like Baltimore riot shirts like
Right.
you know like we don't want to be too straightforward, but we want to awaken people's thoughts about stuff like global warming is real, it is here,
Hmm.
beware the water. The polar ice caps are melting. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right. Right. So just those subtle
So
symbols.
it's inspired by mainly global warming. We're gonna try and get the logo trademark this summer. I think that's our main goal. And then
Mhm.
we just made first run of our shirts. So people are buying them. It's pretty cool, man.
How can people get your stuff, your shirts and stuff?
If you go to my direct Instagram, it's
Hmm.
at CJ Recchia.
Hmm.
And or you could go to the Beware the Waters Instagram at Beware the Gram, and there's like contact info on there. I can mail it myself. I could drive it to someone's house. You know what I mean? It's very
Okay.
independent in the first stages right now,
Right.
but hopefully it takes off because there's really not, there are and there aren't, but in Philly there's really no like it's there's really no big established urban brand. It's a lot of West Coast stuff, like you know what I
Hmm.
mean. Like there's like LRG and Obey, like all them kind of brands
Hmm.
that are like competitors with us. But East Coast, man, ride or die.
There you
You
go.
know, so
There you go. Well, that sounds awesome, man. And we'll have a few pictures up on the show notes of some of the stuff you sent me.
cool, no
Um,
doubt.
once I get that up there, and we'll have the links available for it too for anybody interested in checking it out. It's some really neat stuff. You'll have to check it out. At serviceatchange.com. The link, will be up there on our website, and it'll always be on the archives of our Changecast page as well. So our listeners out there can check that out. So, Joel, any comments for you? We're coming up, close to the end of the show. Anything you want to get into?
I was just impressed when CJ talked about the dedication he put into the details, like the set and everything,
Hmm.
and what I thought was that often we tend to break things down into whether it's form or content. So we
Hmm.
like in this conversation there was content, like we were giving content messages like about positive versus negative, but then there's form, and art takes a form, and there's various forms. But I think through exploring the form of art, you illuminate content. So when he talked about black and white photos or black and white film or black and white video, first thing I thought of was the gray. Because without the gray, there's no substance, there's no composition, there's no detail. So it's the tension between the black and the white. So content. So like what we're trying to understand using, the form of art, the narrative, the story, the movie, the picture, the painting. That by exploring that, we both the person who's creating the art and the viewer of the art or the experiencer of the art get to have their journey, what you call the spiritual journey, Dennis. They get to have that informed formed. So that attention to detail isn't just to make something that looks good. I mean, that's important. Aesthetics are important, but I think like the philosophy, like what we're trying to learn, like the substance of the message is informed by attention to detail.
That's where a picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, the more I study art, and even, as a writer, I look at what can be expressed in a picture that may take me 10 pages to put it out there, which somebody can put, in an image that probably takes equally as long to create, but you can stare at it in a matter of seconds and get the full story, by looking at those details.
I mean, like for me, my art is like a direct form of who I am inside. Like, and it's, everyone. It's hard to talk about your art to other people. It's literally who you are on a piece of paper, on a canvas,
right?
Or video, whatever. Like,
yep.
But it was
exposing yourself, basically.
Having me on here, man, talking about it. It was a little hard for me, but
it's good. It's good training, because I'm sure more interviews are coming for you, CJ.
Hopefully,
I think that
direct expression of who someone is, with their art, even if it's, art could be anything. It could be, just being creative.
Yeah, and I think we need to encourage, more of that. It's the teacher in me talking now, but we're running that out of the school system. And I think we need to embrace that. We got to stop looking for this cookie cutter, pass a test and move on, because
there was a lot of, like, literally blood, sweat, tears, and a whole lot of money that went into this film.
Right.
And it's a free film. I'm putting it on Vimeo and YouTube, like, and it's just something I'm passionate about. Like, money doesn't even faze me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something that I feel strongly about, and I want people to watch, and I think they'll enjoy it.
I'm excited about it, CJ. So it's gonna be available on Vimeo, you said, for free? That's awesome.
Yeah, we might have like a direct download link somewhere too, if someone actually wants to download it, like, for free or whatever, And
that's great.
We're looking forward to getting into a couple film festivals in the fall coming up.
Awesome, man. I did a film almost, I guess, 6-7 years ago now. It was actually, I guess, the prequel or part of this book, I Am Human, that I just put out. And I had this experience one night where I got all this stuff in my head, and I wrote this essay called I Am Human. And it was such a powerful moment for me that I had to put it into, beyond the words, I had to put it into visual form. And the film is all the stuff trying to explain it and stuff. And it's a really neat piece.
It's exactly how I felt when I came across the book of Enoch. I was like, I got to make my own story now.
You got to do something about it and get it out there.
I got to get it out of me and into something,
Yep. And I put the blood, sweat, and tears in it. And actually, I got done the film, and then the file got corrupted, and I lost the whole thing. And I went. It was so important to me, CJ. I did the whole thing again. And it was months worth of work to get this thing done.
My computer crashed. The friggin' external hard drive exploded. Like, everything went wrong in this film, Enoch. Like, I'm right there with you, man.
That means you're on the right track with this stuff, man.
And it's still coming out.
Yep. Well, keep it coming, man. Definitely keep it coming. And we look forward to, what the future holds for you. You always have a spot on this show anytime you want to promote something or talk about your stuff.
You guys, man. I wish you guys luck. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's move into to our final thoughts. Joel, anything else before we go ahead and close out the show?
I was just going to say that his film was based on a religious text, and we talked a little bit about religion. And one of my observations from history and religion and art is that we in our modern society separate art from religion, and we're the first society to have ever done that. Being artistic, being creative,
right?
Being artistic and being creative is religious. Would be religious by most societies' standards.
Right.
Because you are confronting the spirit. CJ said, I had something inside of me. What is that something? That's his spirit.
Right.
I cannot separate my, what you would call religious or spiritual journey from my creative journey. They are one and the same.
One and the same.
That's my final thought.
Well said. Good point, and I agree with you.
Wise words from Joel.
As always.
He's spoken for me this whole time.
He's a smart dude, man. He's got some great insight. So, CJ, let me turn it back over to you for any final thoughts, any websites that you want to plug.
Okay,
One more time for our listeners and stuff.
Yeah, the main source of contact, like for my art, is going to be my Instagram until a website is created. But like I said, the Instagram is at CJ Recchia. My last name is Recchia, and for Beware the Water Clothing, that as well is the Instagram. That's the primary contact. All photography and upcoming shirts are going to be on there, stuff like that. That's at Beware the Gram.
How much do the shirts run, CJ? Because I want to cop one eventually.
We're doing 25
That's
of
not
now.
bad.
Just because I know people are cringing right now for that extra 5. It's just we only made a limited run for our first print. It's never going to be printed again. So
yeah, if you have to do a limited run, it costs more. If you order more, the cost goes down.
This design is not going to be printed again, so I hiked it up an extra 5. Well. But
awesome.
Yeah, Beware the Gram.
We'll have that up on the show notes as well, so people listening to the show can go back to Service of Change. Click the Changecast link if it's not live on the main page, and you can find this interview and all the other links that we talked about for the show. And please support CJ. He's up and coming, man. I think we're going to be hearing more from you in the future. So that's about all the time we have. To our listeners, thank you very much. Please continue to like and share our stuff. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/serviceofchange. All the Twitter feeds are at theserviceofchange.com. We got several of them. Please check out our books, my book Service, Lori Latimer's book, The Art of Service, Haikus for Change, the Urban Educator Survival Guide series, and my free book right now that's available. Well, you can pay for it on Amazon if you want the hard copy, but you can also read it for free for subscribing to our free newsletter, The Seeker, at serviceofchange.com/IamHuman. If you enjoyed this show, you will definitely enjoy that book as well. Again, that's all the time we have. Thank you to our guest, CJ, to my esteemed co-host, Joel Schaefer. I'm Dennis Nappy II with Service of Change, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. Be that change. Thank you.